There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's the 8th of March, and this is a meeting of the Education Subcommittee of Ways and Means. We are going to take up and possibly vote on some bills, but I think we're going to have a little more discussion today than we are just going to vote. But the first bill that I do have before us is House Bill 945. And as I said before, other than a sponsored problem, this is a really great bill. Really enjoy this one. And the bill is called, I refer to it as expanded pathways. The thrust of it is that it creates a slightly different group of things that people have to do to be certified to teach in the state of Maryland. One of them is that the first round is often taking what's called Praxis 1, or it has a lot of other names, but is a first test of teaching skill. And we've offered other alternatives to that. One would be getting a 3.0 in a coursework in a four-year university in an education program, or if you have been teaching provisionally or out of somewhere and you've gotten 3 years, it's 2 right now, but it will become 3 when the regulations change, of very positive evaluations, that will also count as a demonstration of pedagogical skill. Then the next round is something that's very important. It's called the induction with portfolio. Right now, teachers have only an option of 2 nationally based ones. One's called EdTPA. Don't ask me what that stands for off the top of my head, and I can't even think of the letters for the other one, but there are 2 nationally recognized programs. We are going to add in the possibility of local education agencies developing their own induction program with a portfolio. They can do it in groups or in silos if they want to. In other words, they can form coalitions and work together on this. We set down no deadline for them to do this, but we hope that they do it with some, I'm going to use the word again, alacrity, so that they can actually get this done. We didn't want to put deadlines on them, but we're going to watch carefully to make sure that they're beginning this, because we want people to have this option as well. Then the third round is pretty much the same as it was before. You have to take a subject area test depending on what level you're studying for. And then the state of Maryland also requires a reading literacy test. Is basically to make sure that you can teach reading in your subject area comprehensively. And so there's the first 2 provide other pathways for people to do this. There's a number of things about what happens to out-of-state teachers, and I can talk about that, but I have described the bill as it is amended at this point. And we can talk about what the particular amendments are. Alistair, I'll turn it over to you to see if there's any details you feel that need to go further before we get to questions.
I think you covered the bill as amended very well. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Delegate Fair, you have a question.
Yes, Mr. Chair, for you, I know there was a lot of people who testified on this bill. Were you able to find consensus with all of them through these amendments?
What a wonderful question for you to ask. Thank you so much, Delegate. We actually convened a leadership group of Maryland State Department of Education, Maryland State Education Association, also an individual who was in DLS and was one of the architects of this bill, but also now works with the AIB so that they could be there also, and represented MSDE, did also represent the state board at some level. We kept the group small. We met twice to try to get not only the concepts correct the first time, but the language correct the second time. Alistair gets a huge check mark next to his name for the amount of work he did in trying to craft the language in a way that with which everybody was comfortable. So I'm real pleased with the product, and I'm real pleased with how everybody is feeling about that. You can see that Akil Aline, who is our MSDE rep, and Lauren Lamb, who is the MSEA rep, are here. And if anybody wants to ask them questions, we'll allow that. But I hope that answers your question, Delegate.
It does. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and happy Friday, everyone.
Thank you.
The second group that you had there, the midstreamers.
Yeah.
So I'm not understanding this. Are we authorizing them to develop, or are we authorizing their final product, of which we don't know what it's going to be?
No, they'd have to develop it and would have to be approved by State Department.
Okay. Seems a little premature to prove something that we don't know what it is yet.
No, we're telling them basically to develop it and it will get approved. Yeah. And this is the new idea. Okay. It's a new one. And for sure, it will be vetted to see if it's has the efficacy it needs to be useful in this case. It's basically the induction in portfolio is what you think of as student teaching in many ways. Okay, that you're working in a classroom and you're developing a portfolio to show what you did. So you have to pass. It's a test you pass. You present a portfolio, but it's not a test where you answer multiple choice questions or anything like that.
Right. So do they come up with that and then we approve it later?
Alistair, I believe that's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, it has to, so they have to submit a plan to AIB and MSDE before they go about doing this. And then the portfolio component that they come up with has to meet with interstate teacher assessment and support consortium standards, which is like a national standard for how those things should be. But it's still a locally controlled and developed process.
Okay, great. And then the second question I had is, because we want teachers from here. I think we all agree on that. But if a teacher from an adjacent state, for example, wants to come across, are these pathways that we just laid out in line with neighboring jurisdictions? Will they have reciprocity, be able to come over here and teach?
Great question. One of the things that was suggested was a teacher compact. The leadership here and I myself am not comfortable with it. It's a little too permissive right now. And we're going to take a look at it. I think in the future, we'll take a harder look at it. But for right now, what we have done in the bill is we have asked the State Department, the superintendent, to look at other states that have teacher certifications that are substantially the same or better than what we've got, and consider those teachers when they come to just be certified, maybe with a few extra things like that reading literacy test I suggested is kind of something we have extra right now. But also, if somebody were to come here from another state that we hadn't recognized that with, if they had gone to a university and they had a 3.0 or better, that they could bring that and say, look, I already did the first round. Or if they came to us with one where they had been teaching in the other state for 2 or 3 years with really good evaluations, they could say, that covers the first round, doesn't it? Right. And then if they had done one of those national portfolios in that state, they had evidence of having passed that portfolio, that would also count. In other words, they could bring that baggage with them to do that. If they have evidence that they passed the subject area test that we give in this state. Now, if they didn't, they might have to pass a different one. But as far as they can go is demonstrating they've done things in our state, even if it's not a reciprocal arrangement, we would consider all those things as they come.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Alistair, pretty accurate. I like to check with you.
Yeah, they can also complete the new pathway to the extent that those are developed.
That's correct.
In addition to the national recognized one.
Delegate Vogel.
Despite the sponsor problem here, I really like this bill. So
I
curious as to whether
your
do
concerns.
we have to move the amendments now, or are we?
Yeah,
are we moving the whole bill?
you have an amended version before you somewhere. I know that was last minute and you probably don't, but if you do, that version is the amended version, but we would need to move the amendments into that to make it in that fashion.
So I'm going to move the amendments.
Thank you, sir.
If that's allowed.
Have I a second? Thank you. I see Chris Fair's hand up. Is there any further discussion on the amendments, which is basically going to be the bill, but this time we're going to do them separately because it's a pretty big deal. All right, all in favor of the amendments, raise your hand, please. I have 100% of the people present voting yes. On the bill as amended, Delegate Wilkins. Nope. Saw that fun hand up and go back down again.
I'll move the bill.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Thank you, Chow. Delegate Wu, excuse me. All in favor, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the bill as amended, please raise your hands. I thank you all for overcoming the sponsor, and I think even so, the product will be one that you'll appreciate. All right, that's House Bill 945. Our next bill is House Bill 1257. This is a bill on restorative schools and restorative practices. We are looking at the bill. The bill calls for a number of things that, if you were at the meeting yesterday, you understand we can't afford right now. And they, I think I've had that hammered on top of my head enough times. There is a plan for us to take this bill right now and pare it down to a situation where we would charge the State Department of Education with coming up with guidelines and maybe not regulations, but guidelines. And what's another good word there, Alistair? I feel like there's another word that we were using before for this.
A comprehensive plan.
Yeah,
I think
that's great. And here I'm using alacrity, and look at you, comprehensive plan. So to come up with a comprehensive plan and have it ready by July 1 of 2025, which would mean that schools that were interested in doing this could follow this comprehensive plan, use it as a guideline. And maybe by then we'll feel like we want to begin some sort of program. Pilot programs have been discussed, lots of ideas how to begin doing this very important work. I know that the vice chair feels very strongly that this is in our society and in our schools is a great way to go with things. We're just gonna make this bill a starter practice for that. Delegate Hornberger.
Yeah, so not understanding, are they saying that they need the money to come up with this plan?
Usually, Alistair, what do they say? It's usually some sort of amount in the high, $50,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year to have a staff member or, to commit the resources to do this sort of thing. So I believe that's what I don't have the fiscal note, right?
I mean, are you proposing to just make them do it with existing resources, or is
Yeah,
it fiscal note?
I think we could commit the resources if necessary. That would be a budgetary thing, but I think we have, general rule of thumb is if we're hanging around $100,000 for something, that we can probably get away with it right now.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, so
Just a quick question.
oh yeah, there you are. Nice to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.
Okay.
For Alistair, I thought that this committee had previously done something around guidelines or something like that around restorative justice. So I just wanted to establish the distinction with this is that there's more of a comprehensive plan to get this going in our schools a little more.
That's before he answers. That's what I'd say is that this is focused on our schools. I mean the plan of this thing is that you have a restorative schools coordinator outside of a community schools coordinator in a building. So, Alistair, now the question was actually directed at you, and I'm going to allow that.
Thank you, sir. So yes, currently under section 7306 of the education article, there's a requirement that each county board of education incorporate restorative practices into their schools and into their code of discipline, and that they are authorized but not required to request technical assistance from the state board of education. The state board of education's code of discipline does not currently require explicitly the restorative practices be incorporated. I think the idea here is to go even a little bit beyond that, to use some modeling from some of the schools that have worked in the state at implementing these programs to be the basis of newer, more meaty guidelines. But there is currently some law on restorative practices.
Okay.
And if you remember, they had people from schools that exist on grants right now and things like that are running programs. So hopefully they'll rely on them for some of their guidelines and comprehensive plans.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Alistair a question, put him on the spot. We talked about these amendments, but if they're not ready and we haven't shown them to people, my feeling is that everybody's ready to do this, but we should really lay the amendments in front of them first before we vote on it. So in spirit, I want to know if I should task Alistair with writing up these amendments. Is there anyone who objects to the idea of paring this back to having MSDE do the guidelines? Speak now. Okay, so what we're going to do is informally, we're going to charge Alistair with coming up with those amendments, and he will lay them out before you before the next meeting. Unless there's a problem with them, we should be able to come up with a pretty quick vote on them in that time. But if there are things that concern people, that's why I really want to put these in front of you, so to be sure that you don't feel like something's being cut out that shouldn't be, or vice versa. So we'll just move on from the bill. We'll hold the bill until the next meeting on that. Okay, the last bill is House Bill 1157. This one does not have a sponsor problem. It's actually, I don't know how many nice things I can say about this. This is a program that kind of already exists, Grow Your Own Educator Grant Program. Again, we're in a financial tight spot here, and it's very likely, again, we're probably not going to vote on this bill today. It's very likely that we will have to remove the dedicated funding from the bill for now, but there might be other changes we want to make. So again, I don't want to vote on it today before we talk about things that we think maybe we would like to do to it to keep it whole or to fix it in some way, and also to make sure that we're not gutting it entirely. So I'll take questions on the bill in general, and I'll probably defer some of them to Alistair. I might also defer to the sponsor. So Delegate Hornberger.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, a bit of a hit there on the fiscal note, 5 million.
Not
But
gonna happen right now, that's for sure. So
yeah, was this the bill that allowed for folks like paras and the like to eventually move into becoming a teacher?
it's accurate. That's what.
All right, just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I'm fully supportive of that concept. I know that many of them are in that situation because they couldn't afford to go to college or take away time from their family to attend. So anything we can do to help them, I'm supportive of.
And I'm going to take a moment and turn to Lauren Lamb. Get ready, Lauren. Here I come. There was a discussion of other personnel that might be included in this bill. Is that correct?
So we would like, apologies. We would like for this to apply to all education support personnel in the school, and typically that would encompass para-educators, but also food service staff, custodial staff, sometimes bus drivers were represented. So I think it could be a broad range of candidates.
Thank you. Delegate Fair, question.
Yes, and Lauren, this might be for you.
Say that, Lauren.
So we received, and Delegate Miller sent this along to me to just inquire. The Linwood Center shot an email out to, I think, most of our offices inquiring about amending this bill to work on non-public special education schools as well. Is that something that this bill could do, or is the components of this bill too complicated? I'm just curious what your initial reaction or
Yeah, give us your
response to that
opinion
would be.
on that, please, Lauren. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so we've had some of those conversations as well. Because this bill requires collaboratives to apply for grant funds, and the collaboratives need to consist of an LEA, a union, and an institution of higher education, we don't believe that the non-public special education facilities would be eligible in this case. And the collaborative model is really central to this program. So I would not suggest modifying it. That said, if a separate program was to be developed in another bill, I think there's something there.
And either Akila or Rachel, I know this is a little out of your lane, but do either of you want to weigh in on that question? And I'm going to take their relative silence to be leave us alone. Okay. Delegate Vogel, a question.
I apologize for the setting that I'm in a car right now. But a couple questions on first on the collaborative model. Does that have other entities chipping in as well, or is it just the state covering the cost right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. You got it.
I'm sorry. Our vision was that in addition to the state grant funds, that collaboratives would be incentivized to pull down federal funds and potentially other state workforce funds so that there's multiple funding streams.
And this was a program that was much broader, but also funded by the federals to the tune of almost $45 million. But that money's gone. And so now we're trying to figure out what to do with the program and how to keep it, how to breathe some life into it. So Alistair, I always check after I say something like that. Is that accurate? Okay, great. So this is our attempt to resuscitate this so it doesn't die from lack of money.
Okay, fantastic. And in term, I understand that there are concerns around spending, and I guess this is the overarching question here that we must answer. But any ideas on how we can preserve the intent of this program to the fullest while recognizing that maybe we have to cut some spending based on what you were saying earlier, Mr. Chairman?
Well, right. We could all individually, and you could charge me with advocating with appropriations to budget this. Okay. By leaving it in the bill here, it's a mandated appropriation. And so, some things can survive on budgeting. And we can talk to our friends in appropriations and see if in fact they would offer a budget for this this year or in the future. And if they don't, then we can always test the idea of putting money back in if it's allowed. But there's a lot of regulations on us about where we're allowed to mandate money right now. So satisfactory, Delegate?
So, my understanding is those conversations are ongoing to figure out whether we can.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, like I'm sure the sponsor would love to do that, and she, you know, she has ears of people, but so do you. And you know, if you have friends in appropriations, you should ask them what they know. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You know, finding out if this is finding its way into the budget or not. I don't think it is right now, to be, you know, clear. But you know, knowing that it's a priority of ours is an important thing for the people who do the budgeting to know.
We will make it clear that it's a priority of mine as well, and hopefully of the subcommittee.
Do it without, you know, being like me and being obnoxious. Okay. So there you go.
Of course.
All right. Delegate Wilkins.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for the support on this bill. I did want to comment on the Linwood challenge, and I completely recognize we love our non-public special education schools and the important work that they do, especially for students who often cannot be served in traditional public schools. The current makeup of the bill, though, the collaboratives, just given how these schools work, the non-public education schools work, it just would not work to add them to this bill. But I am supportive of other efforts to address their teacher shortage, for them to have their own grow your own. And I also think that given the budget constraints that were just mentioned, us starting out and keeping the bill as is would be my strong preference. But I do want to express support for other avenues, other legislation, however we can help and support our non-public special education schools. But I did want to raise that. I just don't want to blow up this bill in order to add them. So that would just be the concern.
And echoing the vice chair's words, we do support them. In fact, last year we passed a bill that comprehensively helped to level the salaries of the workers in the non-public schools. So it's not out of a lack of interest here. It's just the puzzle piece doesn't fit quite on this one. So thank you for that commentary, Madam Vice Chair. Appreciate that. Okay, I see. Oh, Keely, you had your hand up for a second. Is there something you wanted to add? You're a very good resource, and we need to hear from you if there's something you'd like to say.
Yes, please, if I can. Just wanted to agree with Delegate Wilkins and what you said, Chair Ebersole, on, you know, generally we understand that non-public schools do receive public funding, but it's a very complex situation. And so should there be another bill, we would agree with another avenue. But as far as adding it into this particular bill, we understand the concerns and agree with that as well.
Thank you. It's good. It's good to have the affirmation there. Delegate Vogel, your hand's still up. I know you're in the car and operating things. Is there something else you want to say?
Just procedurally, Mr. Chairman, what are we waiting on for this bill? I'd love to move favorable, but I know that you said that we weren't planning on voting on it, so I want to know what the next steps are. So
sometimes I get a little bit eager to push bills through, and sometimes it's important for us to see the actual amendments. We're suggesting an amendment to this bill right now, and Alistair has a lot on his plate, and I just would like everybody to see this, just like the last bill. I would like everybody to see the amended form to make sure everybody's comfortable with it before we move on it at the next education subcommittee meeting.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
So we'll get it. We'll just have to move. Alistair, are you raising your hand a little bit there for me?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out for you guys that the State Board of Education was favorable with amendments on this bill, and they suggested that some of the funds be held for specifically to allow conditional teachers, resident teachers, or others who are conditionally certified to.
Does everybody understand what that means? Conditional teachers. I call them provisional teachers. Does anyone need clarification on what that means? Or, I mean, don't be ashamed if you're not sure what a term means here. The idea is, well, I can't help myself. I'm going to do it anyway because I'm a teacher. I just can't shut up sometimes. But basically, these are teachers who are teaching either without a certificate yet. You can do that for a certain number of years provisionally. And so looking not only to ESPs and as a number of other professions that were defined, but also the people who are sort of exploring teaching already and bringing them in. And I believe it was suggested that we not let them overwhelm the ESPs, that we keep that group to a certain percentage. Suggested, and I'll listen to this, was that no more than 25% of the people who are accessing the program be from that group. And so that's a suggestion that came from one of the advocates. All right, we'll probably write it in that way, but take a good look at it, okay, everybody, before we, these are pretty big deals, these bills. And so I really want you to have a good look at them before we vote on them at the next, subcommittee meeting. All right, with that, we've covered all three bills. I hope some of you made it home with all the proper legal alacrity. And I'm not, I'm still here in the office, but I appreciate you hanging around on a Friday, and I'll see you Monday at 11. At least I'm not bringing you in Monday morning, okay, before all that. So there you go.